Have you ever sat at your own dinner table and felt like a stranger in your own home? Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. The rain in Seattle tapped gently on the windows, but inside, the silence was anything but gentle. My son, Daniel, sat across from me, stabbing at his mashed potatoes like he wished they'd disappear. His wife, Camille, didn't have that problem. She looked me dead in the eyes. "Gregory," she began, "not Dad or even Mr. Wilkins, just Gregory, like I was some tenant overstaying my lease. We need to talk about space." I sipped my water. 42 years of estate law had taught me that silence, used right, could be louder than a scream. "This house," she said, gesturing around with her perfectly manicured fingers, "is too much for you. Daniel and I need space to build our lives. And you," she paused, that little glint in her eyes, "the kind people get when they think they're about to win, you need to start considering a retirement facility. Something more suitable for your age." I laughed. Quietly. Not because it was funny, but because I needed to or I'd snap. "This house," I said softly. "My parents built this house in 1953. My wife, Elaine, and I raised our son here. She planted every rose in that garden. And now it's too much." "Exactly," Camille smiled, that tight smile that doesn't touch the eyes. "You're 69, Greg. It's time. There are amazing communities with people your age. Bingo nights, medical care, yoga for seniors. You'd thrive." Daniel finally looked up. "She's just trying to help." "No, Daniel. She wasn't. But I didn't say that. I just said, this is my home. For now," Camille whispered as she collected the plates with a speed that made the china tremble. Daniel vanished upstairs with the grace of a guilty child pretending he had emails to check. And I sat alone. At the table my father had carved with his own hands. The air in the room grew heavy, like it knew what was coming. If you were in Gregory's place, sitting at the table where your family history lived, and someone told you to leave, what would you do? Drop a comment below. I'm reading every one of them. I stood, walking quietly toward the stairs. I should have gone to bed. Should have let it go. But then I heard voices from the kitchen. "Camille, your father is taking too long to die, Daniel." I froze. "We need that money now. Not in 10 years when we're pushing 50. Daniel mumbled something, weak, cowardly. Camille's voice was like ice. "Exactly. 850 grand in property. God knows how much in savings. And he just sits on it. We deserve that life. Let's make this house so uncomfortable he'll want to leave." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I climbed the stairs to my study, sat at the desk where I'd helped hundreds of families plan their estates, and I started writing. Not out of pain, but out of purpose. Because I knew what they didn't. I'd spent 4 decades protecting people from vultures. And now I had to protect myself. What do you think Gregory's going to do next? Let me just say, this old man isn't going down without a plan. Part 2 will show you exactly how justice starts, with a pen. You ever look at someone you love and realize they've become a stranger? A few days after that dinner, I woke up thinking about photo albums. Elaine's albums. The ones with our wedding tucked between pages of yellowing lace and snapshots of baby Daniel covered in spaghetti sauce. Except, they weren't in the closet anymore. I remember the moment so clearly. I came home from coffee with my old buddy Raymond, and I saw the trash bins out front. Something about the way they bulged, almost smug, made me look. And there they were. Years, decades, of memories. Dumped like expired yogurt. Photos of Daniel's first birthday, Elaine's laughter in the summer garden, even the one where I wore socks with sandals in Hawaii. All of it stuffed into black plastic bags like they were nothing. I stormed into the kitchen. Camille was making a smoothie, unbothered as always. "Those were 40 years of memories," I said, my voice barely holding back the quake. She didn't even turn. "They were taking up space." Daniel agreed. "They're just old pictures of dead people." I felt something inside me splinter. Daniel? My son? I found him in the garage. He wouldn't look at me. "Dad, we needed the closet." "Lives right." They were just sitting there. They were safe. They were sacred. They were mine. I rescued what I could. But something more important was lost that day. Not the photos, but the illusion that Daniel still saw me as a father, not just an obstacle. Back upstairs, I pulled out my yellow legal pad. My notes grew longer, more detailed. Dates, quotes, moments. Each word felt like a nail in the coffin of our relationship. And then there was the phone call. Camille didn't know I was in the hallway. Thin walls in old houses, dangerous for secrets. She laughed into the phone. The old miser sits on $500,000 in savings. And we asked for one small thing, $50,000 to start Daniel's business. And he acted like we were trying to rob him. They'd never asked for a loan. They wanted a gift. No terms, no repayment. When I offered to co-sign a real loan through the bank, Camille had called me paranoid. They laughed about me. In my house. They called me a cheapskate. A relic. I wrote it all down. Then one day while checking the mailbox, Patricia, my neighbor, walked over. Former high school English teacher, heart of gold, gossip radar like a CIA satellite. "Greg, saw your boy and his wife the other day," she said. They were leaving Berkshire real estate. Looked excited. Maybe buying a second home. My heart stopped. Not buying. Selling. Have you ever had someone close to you go behind your back like this? Maybe not over money, but over trust? Let me know in the comments. You're not alone in that betrayal. Not even close. I found the paper they'd printed the next day, left on the shared printer tray like it was meant to be discovered. My address. My home. Market value, $875,000. And Camille's handwriting at the top, quick sale after inheritance. Not eventual sale. Quick, like they were just waiting for me to die, or planning for it. I poured a drink. My hand trembled. Not from age, but from fury. I thought about Elaine, about her garden, about the smell of lemon pie in spring and laughter echoing through the halls. They wanted to erase that. They wanted to erase me. But I wasn't going to let them. They think Gregory is an old man they can manipulate. But what happens when the man they're trying to push out decides to push back, harder, smarter, and with decades of legal knowledge? Part 3 is where Gregory stops documenting and starts planning. The day I stopped being the victim was a Tuesday. Camille and Daniel didn't know it yet. They still thought I was just a tired old man shuffling around, grieving my wife and clinging to my house out of loneliness. But in truth, I wasn't grieving anymore. I was documenting. And now, I was planning. It started with a file. A digital one, password protected, stored in a cloud account neither of them knew about. Inside, screenshots, transcriptions, voice memos, everything I'd overheard. There were records of whispered threats, subtle isolation tactics, and budget spreadsheets labeled post-inheritance life, where they planned to spend my money on a luxury car, a $400,000 dream home in Bend, and God help me, country club memberships. Nothing about charity. Nothing about Jake's college fund. Just greed, spelled out in Excel. And then came Jake's birthday. He was turning 7. I called Daniel and asked, "What time should I come by?" There was a pause. "Actually, Dad," he said, "Camille thinks maybe it's better if you don't come this year." "Don't come? To my grandson's birthday?" Camille chimed in from the background. "You make things about yourself. Your legal war stories bore people, and the kids don't relate to you." I went anyway. I showed up early. Brought Jake a model airplane and a book we used to read together. Camille smiled like a shark. The party was awkward. Jake was distant, like he didn't quite remember the version of me he'd grown up loving. "Mommy says you're always tired and grumpy now," he whispered. "Are you sick, Grandpa?" "No, kiddo. I'm just surrounded by people who want me gone." That night, I added another entry to the file. If someone ever tried to turn your own family against you, how would you handle it? Would you fight back or walk away? Comment below. I want to hear how you would protect what matters most. A few days later, I found a message on the house voicemail from my doctor. They'd been trying to reach me for days, something about a medication adjustment. Camille had taken the message and told me 3 days later, during breakfast. "Oh, right, your doctor called or something. Monday? Tuesday? I don't know. Nothing urgent. It had been Thursday. The office was frantic when I finally called back. She deliberately kept it from me. "Gregory, I can't be your secretary," she snapped when I confronted her. "No, Camille. You can't. And you won't be for much longer." I sent an email to someone I trusted more than anyone, Eleanor Hastings. We'd worked together for years at Wilkins and Horn LLP. Brilliant estate planner. Tough as nails. Loyal. Subject line: "Need your help with a personal matter. Urgent." Her reply came within an hour. "Saturday. 10 a.m. Bring coffee." I smiled. Not out of joy. Out of purpose. Like a chess player seeing 5 moves ahead and knowing checkmate is inevitable. Camille and Daniel think they've won. But Gregory just called in a secret weapon, and the trap he's about to set will make your jaw drop. Wait until you see what happens in part 4. Eleanor didn't ask questions when I walked into her office that Saturday morning. Just handed me a coffee and said, "Start talking." And I did. For 2 hours, I unloaded everything. The manipulation. The gaslighting. The way Daniel let Camille chip away at me until I was just a burden in my own home. By the time I finished, her jaw was tight. "This isn't just greedy," she said. "It's calculated." "Exactly," I nodded. "And I want to give them what they want." She blinked. "Excuse me? I want to change my will. Give them everything. The house. The savings. The investments." She stared. "Gregory." "But," I added with a smile that tasted like cold steel, "I want to make sure they never see a dime unless they earn it." What we built over the next week was a masterpiece. 9 pages of clean legal architecture designed to look like a gift, but in reality, it was a trap. Page 1. Everything goes to Daniel and Camille. Assets. Bank accounts. Exactly what they wanted. But page 4? That's where things shifted. Camouflaged in small print was the clause that would rewrite their lives. They had to live in the house for 10 years. No renting, no selling. They had to make $15,000 annual donations to the Elaine Wilkins Memorial Fund, split between the local food bank and animal rescue. They had to maintain the house, with proof of upkeep submitted to the executor. Failure to comply? The entire estate reverts to charity. Eleanor looked at me, halfway between impressed and horrified. "You're having them witness this, aren't you?" "Oregon law allows it," I said. "And when they sign, they confirm I'm of sound mind. That shuts down any future claim of coercion or senility." "They won't read it." "Nope. Because they think they've already won." That night I told Camille, "I'm ready. You're right. I've been selfish. Let's make it official." Her eyes lit up like Vegas. We set the notary appointment for September 15th. And for 3 whole days? They were nice. Camille cooked real meals. Daniel asked about my day. The heater mysteriously started working again. Even my favorite newspaper showed up on the porch like magic. They weren't kind because they changed. They were kind because they thought they'd won. If someone handed you a pen and said, "You're about to sign your dream into reality," would you pause and read the fine print? Or would you sign without blinking? Tell me below. You never know when life hides the truth in page 4. September 15th, downtown notary office. Camille dressed like a corporate lioness. Daniel followed like a golden retriever. The notary, Jonathan Wright, was crisp and unreadable. A real pro. "Have all parties read the full document?" he asked. 9 pages? Camille laughed. Of course. She hadn't. Neither had Daniel. They both signed as witnesses, sealing their fate with expensive ink and smug smiles. And just like that, they were locked inside a cage they didn't know they built. What happens when the wolves realize the sheep they cornered was actually a lion? Part 5 is the moment of revelation. You don't want to miss what happens when they finally read what they signed. September 16th. Camille floated into the living room like a queen surveying her new kingdom. "I'm going to the bank," she chirped, heels clicking. "Time to talk options." "Options?" I asked, folding my newspaper slowly. She smirked. "A bridge loan. Daniel Startup's finally getting the capital it deserves. No point waiting, we have assets now." "The inheritance you'll receive after I'm gone?" I asked calmly. She waved it off. "Technicality." I let her go. And I waited. 3 hours later, the door slammed so hard, one of Elaine's photo frames fell off the wall. Camille stormed in, red-faced, shaking a handful of papers like they were snakes. What did you do? I looked up. Camille, I'm reading. If you could. Don't play dumb with me, she shrieked. The bank read the will. They saw the conditions. The donations. The 10 years in the house. We can't touch anything. Daniel walked in behind her, pale, clutching his own copy of the will like it had bitten him. This isn't what we agreed to, he whispered. You didn't agree to anything, I said, standing slowly. You demanded. I complied. Camille's voice cracked. We signed. We witnessed this. Exactly. Which means you confirmed I was of sound mind. So any attempt to contest it would only prove one thing. You trapped us, she hissed. No, I said. You trapped yourselves. Daniel sank into the armchair like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Camille paced like a caged animal. We'll find a lawyer. Someone to break it. I recommend Marcus Chin, I offered. Top estate attorney. Knows Oregon law inside and out. The next day, she did just that. Came back even more livid. He said it's airtight, legal, that the moment we try to contest it, we lose everything. Correct, I nodded. Section 7, subsection B, respect clause. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Camille dropped onto the sofa, stunned. Daniel just stared at the floor. This is revenge, she whispered. No, I said softly. Revenge would have been leaving everything to charity and throwing you both out. This. I smiled. This is a lesson. She looked up, tears brimming but not falling. You'll die and leave us in this prison. I walked to the stairs. Only if you stay. You can walk away. No one's forcing you to accept the inheritance. The charities will gladly take it. But if you want the money, you have to earn it. Daniel followed me with his eyes. You really did this. No, you did, I replied. When you valued my money more than my life. When you turned my home into a battlefield. When you forgot who I was. Camille said nothing. For once, she had no clever retort. You wanted control, I said, pausing at the top of the stairs. You wanted to write the final chapter of my life. But the pen? It was always in my hand. I closed the door behind me, poured myself the last of Elaine's favorite whiskey, and raised a silent toast. To the fine print. To the long game. To remembering that dignity is never something you have to give away. Not even for family.